Hello, love bugs. You ready for a little more BFG? I know that I am. We can, let's join up together on page 87. We have a troggle humper for the flesh lump eater. You know for sure I'm going to stutter all over this one, so be patient, guys. This one's a tongue twister. Go ahead and turn to page 87. Meet me there, and let's see what all of the fuss is about.
They is always having 50 winks before they go scumpering off to hunt human beings in the evening,
the BFG said. He stopped for a few moments to let Sophie have a better look.
Giants is only sleeping every then and now, he said. Not nearly as much as human beings. Human beings is crazy for sleeping. Is it ever occurring to you that a human being who is 50 is spending about 20 years sleeping fast?
Well, I must admit that it has never occurred to me, Sophie said.
Well, you should allow it to occur to you, the BFG said. Imagine it, please. This human being who says he is 50 has been fast asleep for 20 years and not even knowing where he is. Not even doing anything. Not even thinking.
Well, it is a funny thought, Sophie said.
Exactly, the BFG said. So what I is trying to explain to you is that a human being who says he is 50 is not 50. He is only 30.
Well, what about me? Sophie said. I'm 8.
You was not 8 at all, the BFG said. Human being babies and little chittlers is spending half their time sleeping. So, you was only 4.
I'm 8, Sophie said.
Psh, you may think you was 8, the BFG said, but you has only spent 4 years of your life with your little eyes open. You is only 4, and please stop higgling me. Titchy little snapper whippers like you should not be higgling around with an old sage and onion who is hundreds of years more than you.
Let me stop here. What he is saying is that we sleep so much, and if we added up all the hours that we sleep, he's saying you should subtract that off of your life because you weren't really even living at all. You were just laying there. What do you think about that? Is that logical? I don't know. I think I'm 45 years old, whether I've slept a lot or not. How about you? How old are you? All right, page 88. How much do giants sleep? Sophie asked.
They is never wasting much time snozzling, the BFG said. 2 or 3 hours is enough.
Well, when do you sleep? Sophie asked.
Even less, the BFG answered. I is sleeping only once in a blue baboon.
Once in a blue moon. That's the saying. Sophie, peeping out from her pocket, examined the 9 sleeping giants. They looked even more grotesque now than when they were awake. Sprawled out across the yellow plain, they covered an area about the size of a football field. Most of them were lying on their backs with their enormous mouths open wide. And they were snoring like foghorns. The noise was awful. Suddenly, the BFG gave a jump in the air.
Whoa! By gum frog! He cried. I is just having the most wopsy-whiffling idea.
What? Sophie said.
Wait, he cried. Hold your horse feathers. Hold your horses. Keep your skirt on. Just you wait to see what I is going to bring about.
He galloped off fast to his cave, with Sophie hanging on tight to the rim of his pocket. He rolled back the stone, and he entered the cave. He was very excited. He was moving quickly.
You stay where you is in my pocket, Huggy Bee, he said. We is doing this lovely bit of buck swashling both together.
He laid aside the dream-catching net, but hung on to the suitcase. He ran to the other side of the cave and grabbed the long trumpet thing, the one that he had been carrying when Sophie had first seen him in the village. With the suitcase in one hand and the trumpet in the other, he dashed out of the cave. What is he up to now? Sophie wondered.
Keep your head up good, the BFG said. Then you will get a fine winkle of what's going on.
When the BFG came near to the sleeping giants, he slowed his pace. He began moving softly. He crept on his toes towards the ugly brutes. They were still snoring loudly. Ugh, they looked repulsive, filthy, diabolical. That means evil. The BFG tiptoed around them. He went past the gizzard gulper, the blood bottler, the meat dripper, the child chewer. Then he stopped. He had reached the flesh lump eater. He pointed at him, then he looked down at Sophie and gave her a wink, a big wink. He knelt on the ground and very quietly he opened the suitcase. He took out of it the glass jar containing the terrible, nightmarish Trogglehumper. Can you see what's going to happen next? At that point, Sophie guessed what would happen next. Ouch, she thought. This could be rather dangerous. She crouched lower in the pocket so that only the top of her head and her eyes were showing. She wanted to be ready to duck out of sight very fast should anything go wrong. They were about 10 feet away from the flesh lump eater's face. The snoring, snorting sound he was making was disgusting. Every now and again a big bubble of spit formed between his two open lips, and then it would burst with a splash and cover his whole face with saliva. Spit. Taking infinite care, the BFG unscrewed the top of the glass jar and tipped the squiggling, squirming, faintly scarlet Trogglehumper into the wide end of his long trumpet. He put the other end of the trumpet to his lips. He aimed the instrument directly at the flesh lump eater's face. He took a deep breath, puffed out his cheeks, and then he blew. Sophie saw a flash of pale red go darting toward the giant's face. For a split second it hovered above the face, and then it was gone. It seemed to have been sucked up the giant's nose, but it had all happened so quickly that, Sophie couldn't be sure.
We had better be skittling away quick to where it is safe, the BFG whispered. He trotted off for about 100 yards, and then he stopped. He crouched low to the earth. Now, he said, we is waiting for the gun and flames to begin.
I think he meant fun and games. They didn't have long to wait. The air was suddenly pierced by the most fearful roar Sophie had ever heard, and she saw the flesh lump eater's body, all 54 feet of it, rise up off the ground and fall back again with a thump. And then it began to wiggle and twist and bounce about in the most violent fashion. It was quite frightening to watch.
Yow! roared the flesh lump eater. Yow! Yow! He's still asleep, the BFG whispered. The terrible Troggle-humping nightmare is beginning to hit him.
Serves him right, Sophie said. She could feel no sympathy for this great brute who ate children as though they were sugar lumps.
Save us!
Screamed the flesh lump eater, thrashing about madly. He is after me! Ooh, he is getting me! The thrashing of limbs and the waving of arms became so much more violent by the second, page 92. It was an awesome thing to watch such a massive creature having such mighty convulsions.
It's Jack! Bellowed the flesh lump eater. It's the gruesome, grunctuous Jack! Jack is after me! Jack is crackling me! Jack is spike sticking me! Jack is splash splunking me! It is the terrible, fright swiping Jack!
The flesh lump eater was writhing about over the ground like some colossal tortured snake.
Oh, spare me, Jack, he yelled. Don't hurt me, Jack!
Who is this Jack that he is on about? Sophie whispered.
Jack is the only human being that all giants is afraid of, the BFG told her. They is all absolutely terrified of Jack. They is all hearing that Jack is a famous giant killer.
Do you know who it is? Stay tuned.
Save me! Screamed the flesh lump eater. Oh, have mercy on this poor little giant. Oh, the beanstalk! He's coming at me with the terrible spike-sticking beanstalk! Take it away! I is begging you, Jack. I is praying that you not to touch me with your terrible spike-sticking beanstalk. Us giants, the BFG whispered, is not knowing very much about this dreaded human being called Jack. We is only knowing that he is a famous giant killer and that he is owning something called a beanstalk. We is knowing that the beanstalk is a fearsome thing and Jack is using it to kill giants.
Sophie couldn't help but to smile. She couldn't stop smiling. Can you infer why she's smiling? What do you know? What's your background knowledge? What did the text say? Now you've got an inference. You're right. She's figured out that they must have heard the story of Jack and the beanstalk. And as he's escaping down the beanstalk, he chops it down and the giant falls out of the sky. I think Sophie is familiar with that story too.
What is you griggling at?
The BFG asked her, slightly nettled, annoyed. I'll tell you later, Sophie said. The awful nightmare had now gripped the great brute to such an extent that he was tying his whole body into knots.
Oh, do not do it, Jack, he screeched. I was not eating you, Jack. I is never eating human beings. I swear I have never gobbled a human being in my wholesome life. Liar, said the BFG.
Just then, one of the flesh lump eater's flailing fists caught the still fast asleep, meat-dripping giant smack in the mouth. At the same time, one of his furiously thrashing legs kicked the snoring, gizzard-gulping giant right in the guts. Both the injured giants woke up and leaped to their feet.
He is swiping me right in my mouth, yelled the meat dripper.
He's bun-swoggling me smack in the guts, shouted the gizzard gulper. The two of them rushed at the flesh lump eater and began pounding him with their fists and feet. The wretched flesh lump eater woke up with a bang. He awoke straight from one nightmare into another. He roared into battle, and in the bellowing, thumping, rough and tumble that followed, one sleeping giant after another got stepped on or kicked. Soon, all 9 of them were on their feet, having the most almighty free-for-all. They punched and kicked and scratched and bit and butted each other so hard, or each other as hard as they could. Blood flowed, noses went crunch, teeth fell out like hailstones. The giants roared and screamed and cursed, and for many minutes the noise of battle rolled across the yellow plain. The BFG smiled a big, wide smile of absolute pleasure.
I is loving it when they is all having a good toughin' rumble, he said.
They'll kill each other, Sophie said.
Buh, never, the BFG answered. Those beasts is always bishing and swalloping at one another. Soon it'll be getting dusky and they will be galloping off to fill their tummies.
Ugh, They're coarse. That means rude. They're coarse and foul and filthy, Sophie said. I hate them. As the BFG headed back to the cave, he said quietly,
We certainly was putting that nightmare to good use, though, weren't we?
Excellent use, Sophie said. Well done, you. And that, my friends, is that chapter. Tune in for the next episode where we discuss dreams. See you soon.